We will start Chapter 2, Basic Merchandising Mathematics today. You learn general concept, important concept in retailing and merchandising. Also, you learn the importance of retail math in retailing and merchandising. And today, we will talk about the basic merchandising mathematics, and there are 5 objectives for this chapter. First, you will be able to understand basic mathematics calculations frequently used in making decisions related to merchandising and management activities. So these are all going to be basic math calculations that you will use a lot in retailing and retail math. Second, to sharpen skills and improve speed and accuracy in using mathematics. Third, we'll review the use of decimal and percent. As these two concepts are really important in retail math, you're going to learn about how to use these decimals and percent in retail math. Fourth, to develop competency in applying basic mathematical formulas to solve a merchandising problem. And last but not least, you will understand and use unit measure. So we're going to talk about each unit measure in this chapter, and you will learn about this unit measure and how to use this in retail math. So Chapter 2 overview, we will start from decimals and how you can use this decimal, and we will learn about the unit measure and basic percentage calculation and using percent. Especially for Chapter 2, Part 1, you will learn the decimals. So let's go ahead and get started. Basic merchandising mathematics. It is really important to understand how to use fractions, decimals, and percent in merchandising because it is really important, essential to achieve success in merchandising. So you have to use the accurate number and use the right fraction and decimal and percent to make sure that your number is correct and to achieve the success in merchandising. And the mathematics of merchandising involves simple math, as you already learned in your high school or from the basic math class, so such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And what you have to know in this class, this is going to be applied throughout the semester. Know these basic mathematical rules. And the first one, so when you figure, your figures are given in dollar and cents amount, you will use the dollar sign with your final answer. So you have to make sure that what your question is, and if it's asking you about the dollar amount, make sure to use this dollar sign with your final answer. So put it in front of your answer. And second, you have to round your final answer to the nearest hundredth, the cents. But do not round until you have the final answer. So what you need to do, calculate the final answer and don't worry about this decimal or like percent, and you will round that when you get the final answer. And last but not least, you have to use the comma to divide the thousand. That's common rule. So for example, if you see this $1,000, you have to put this comma after this number 1, right, to divide the 1,000. So you have to make sure to divide these 1,000 units. So these are really simple and basic mathematical rules, but that's gonna be applied for all this retail math and for this class. So make sure this part, and let's talk about the decimals. Decimals are used a lot in the retail math because we are using the cents. When you talk about the 25 cents, that's gonna be 0.25. So decimals are used to indicate fractions of tenth, hundredth, thousands, or some multiple of 10. And these decimals are used in statements of dollar and cents, as I mentioned. So if it's 10 cents, that's gonna be 0.10. And any number of zeros may be added to the right of the decimal point without changing the value of the number. And here is the example. So if you see this $4, that's gonna be same as $4.00. So it's not gonna change your number, value of the number, whether you add the 00 to the right of your decimal point. And important part of the calculating the decimal is gonna be adding and subtracting the decimal. So all decimals must be aligned in the same column. So you're gonna put this like a decimal point as a center, and you're gonna put the whole number on the left hand side and this decimal number on the right hand side. So when a whole number written without the decimal point, it is understood that the decimal point is located to the right of the whole number. And here is the example. So 125. This is gonna be same as 125.0, and you put the whole number on 125 on the left of the decimal point, and you put the 0 on the right of the decimal point. And more examples coming. So example 2.1. So you have 3 different numbers here. So one number is, it has the 2 decimal places, and second number doesn't have decimal places, and third number has a 3 decimal places. So first number 255.25, and second number 125, and third number is 75.321. And you remember that when you add or subtract the numbers with the decimal places, you have to put this decimal point as a middle center. And you're going to put the whole number on the left hand side and the decimal number on the right hand side. So this is going to be same as you put additional zeros on the right of the decimal point. So your 255.25 is going to be same as 255.250. That's not going to change the value of the number. And your 125 is same as 125.000. And your 75.321 is going to be same as that, 75.321. And you can add this number. So start from the end. So you add this all, and that's gonna be 1. 5 plus 2 is gonna be 7, and 2 plus 3 is gonna be 5, and 5 is gonna be 15. So you put 1 up here, and this is gonna be 5, and 5 to 7 plus 1, that's gonna be another 15. So you put 1 here, so that's gonna be 455.571. So you have to know that whether it doesn't include these additional zeros on the right hand side, your number is not going to be changed whether you add additional zeros on the right of your decimal point. And now let's talk about multiplying the decimals. So when you multiply the decimals, the answer is known as the product. And to locate the position of the decimal point in the answer, add the number of the decimal place in the number to be multiplied. And I'll tell you this, don't worry about the decimal places, decimal numbers, or like decimal points now. So you're gonna pretty much multiply these two numbers, and you'll calculate how many decimal places you have at the end. So begin at the right and count of the number of the decimal places. And I have some examples for you. So you have this 2.35 and 2.1. So what you have to do, don't worry about this decimal point. And you're going to multiply, you can just imagine that you simply multiply these two numbers, 235 and 21. And you're going to start to multiply 235 and 1. So when you multiply these two, that's going to be 235. And second, you're gonna multiply 2.35 and 2. That's gonna be 470, and you're gonna start from the second from the right, and you're gonna get 4935. And I'll tell you why you have this decimal point right next to 4. When you multiply these two numbers with the different decimal places, what you have to do, you have to add these two decimal places. So there are two decimal places in 2.35 and one decimal place in 2.1. Thus, you're gonna add these two decimal places in 2.35. So plus 2 plus 2.1 has one decimal place, so you're going to add 1. So your answer will end up to have the 3 decimal places. So here's another example. For example, imagine that you're multiplying the 1.25 and 3. And what will happen? You have 2 decimal places in 125, but no decimal place in number 3. So you're gonna add 2 decimal places from 1.25 plus 0 from the number 3. And you're gonna end it up to have 2 decimal places. So I want you to understand this multiplying concept and just kind of get the idea about how you can get the final decimal places, number of the final decimal places when you multiply 2 different or 3 different kinds of number. And now let's talk about dividing decimals. So when you divide the decimal numbers with a calculator, the decimal will be positioned automatically in the answer. And to divide with the calculator, you're gonna enter the dividend first, then the divisor. Here is an example. So you want to divide 48.24 by 12. So did you see that you put the dividend on the left first, and then you're gonna put the divisor on the right. So 48.28, and what you're gonna do, so this is the hand calculation. You're gonna put the 12 on the left hand side here and start to divide. So 48 divided by 12 is gonna be 4, and 2 cannot be divided by 12, but 24 can be divided by 2. So it's 402. Okay, and where you have to put the decimal. So when there are 2 decimal places in 48.24 and no decimal place in 12, so what's gonna happen, you're gonna minus. So when you multiply, you did plus, right? So but when you divide it, you're gonna minus it. So 2 decimal places from number 48.28 minus 0 decimal place in number 12. So you're gonna end it up to have 2 decimal places. So here, you're gonna put decimal right next to 4, and this is, you have 2 decimal places. And also when you try to do this math with the calculator, you can kind of see how this works, but go ahead and start to think about where you have to put your dividend and divider, and think about how you can get the final decimal places when you divide the number with the 2 different decimal places. So the answer was 4.02. So you learn how to calculate and how you divide the decimal number with the decimal places. And now let's talk about rounding decimals. There are specific rules when you round these decimals. And once again, this is gonna apply for this class throughout the semester. And rules for rounding decimals differ depending on the degree of accuracy, desire, and the particular purpose of the figure. Maybe some people doesn't want to round the decimal. But in our class and for most of the retail math, because we have the cents amount, you're gonna end it up to round the decimal to the second decimal places. When working problem in this workbook, round all final answers to the nearest 100. So that means the 2 decimal places, unless instructed otherwise, but more likely you're gonna have this number with the final 2 decimal places. And when rounding off a number, check the number in the third position to the right of the decimal point and then round to 2 places. So it depends on what number you had on the third position to the right of the decimal point. Here you go. If the number in the third place is 5, including the 5 or more, drop this number and add 1 to the number to its left. So that means they add number 1 to the second decimal place number. However, if the number in the third place is less than 5, you're going to drop this number and leave the other as they are. So you're not going to add or subtract any number, but you just drop that number on the third decimal place. Let's look at the example. So you have this number 45.678. Can you guess what number you're going to end it up to get if you have to round it up to the second decimal place? There you go. How about number 8? Is this greater than 5 or no? Yes, that's bigger than number 5. So what you're going to do, you're going to add 1 to the second decimal place number and you're going to delete this. So that's 45.68. Let's look at the second number. 45.674, and 4 is, yes, smaller than number 5. So you're gonna just drop that number and you're gonna leave other number as they are. So that's gonna be 45.67. Here you go, the last one. A little bit tricky because it's exactly number 5. But once again, if it's 5 or greater than 5, you're gonna add number 1 on the number to the left of the third decimal place. So you're gonna add number 1 here and you're gonna drop the number. Okay, so that's gonna be 45.68. Okay, yeah, that's it for the chapter 2 part 1. Hope you understand all the concept about decimal and how you calculate these important decimals and so on. And we're going to continue to talk about the unit measure and other basic calculation, percent basic calculation, and how you can use the percent the next time. And hope you can review and study this more. And there are more examples in the book, so it's always going to be really helpful for if you can practice or review more after this the end of the lecture. So that's it, and I'll see you the next time.